listeners. Welcome to another episode of Romance Unraveled. This is one of your co hosts, Jacob Bozen. And for the month of June, I have a new co host for us. His name is Noah Boudreau, right? I said it right.
Boudreau,
Boudreau,
yes.
Boudreau, yeah. So it's kind of funny. If you listen to the episode where I told my four dating stories in Knoxville, Noah is the very last date that I had that was actually a good date. And he's my like most loyal listener, it seems, at this point. And so I thought, well, maybe we can have you as someone to like co-host it with me for the show for June. So yeah, here we are. And Noah, let's have you introduce yourself.
Hi, listeners. My name is Noah. I am obviously from Knoxville, Tennessee. I grew up in a small town about 45 minutes south of Chicago, and then moved to Tennessee in 2013. And yeah, I've been here ever since. I'm a district manager in like retail and sales, and yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Great. Yeah. He, if it wasn't for Noah, I would have probably left Knoxville feeling a kind of a little weird. So if you want like a a good interesting story about a series of dates, you can head over to that episode. I think it's called From in the Closet to Godzilla to Normal or something like that. But actually today Noah is going to be telling us one of his stories. So I'll hand it right over to you.
All right. So my story today is actually going to be about my very first ever date with a guy. And this is going back about like 9 years ago.
How old were
So
you?
I would have been 21 at the time,
Wow,
and
so you
still
didn't
very
start
much so in the
really.
closet.
Yeah, that's kind of, I mean, at least from my perspective, that seems kind of like a late start.
Yes. Yeah. So all through high school and stuff, I actually had a girlfriend. So I was very
Oh.
like naive. I mean, I always had like, the curiosities and stuff. But when I moved to Knoxville, um, I actually started working a job at a restaurant, and a lot of the people there were like always just they were like, "Are you sure?" And I was like, "No, no, no. Like I like this one girl." And then finally one day one of the bartenders there was just like, "Why don't you just like get on Grinder?" And I mean, from since then, I mean, I feel like I've kind of been a little corrupt. But I started messaging with this guy, and being like, 21, I feel like it was kind of like I'm gonna go for some like older guy that like has his life together and everything like that.
Um,
And
how old
I
was he?
started this guy, he was 32, I think. So, I mean, there was
Okay.
like an 11-year age gap. Um
Yeah.
and I being like young and naive, obviously like I was just like really mesmerized by the fact that this guy was giving me like, keeping conversation going and everything like that. And obviously like on Grinder, that's like not a normal thing. It's typically, you want to hook up and then that's it. So we started talking, and
So
we'll
just to
call.
clarify really quick, so at this point, you're not with the girlfriend anymore from high
Oh,
school.
no, no, no. That ended in high school. Yeah.
Okay.
That's long ago. Yep.
Okay, great.
Yes. So we'll call this guy Mac.
Okay.
And so Mac and I like started off, just like very casual and just like talking and stuff. And I didn't really like at the time like know a time frame on how long I guess you could say you like talk to someone on a dating app before you like meet them. So we like talked for a little bit, and at the time like I was not out to anybody. So I couldn't really like disclose this information to anyone. Like I was really shy about it. And we kept talking, and everything seemed like so normal. And so as we kept talking, like, the conversation just kept getting more interesting and stuff like that. And then finally one day, he asked me out, and I was like, uh, yeah, like let's go. So we went and saw a movie. Um, and I feel like the movie was maybe like Birdman or something, which wasn't really something that I was like super interested in.
Hmm.
Maybe it wasn't, I don't know what it was, but it wasn't something that I was really that interested in. So we went and saw this movie, and then we went and had dinner. And at this point in time, I was in between apartments for like student housing. So I was living at home. So I just told my parents like I was going out with friends. And so we went and saw the movie, and then we had dinner. And then like I thought the date was going to end there. And it was kind of getting like a little like awkward, a little quiet. And then he was like, "Hey, we're so close to like Cades Cove. Do you want to like go drive through the mountains?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, that sounds like so romantic."
What is Kate's Cove? Is it just a canyon?
It's no, it's so it's like a area that you can like drive through and or walk in the Smoky Mountains. I forget how many miles it spans through, but like it's like a really pretty like scenic view. Now at nighttime it closes though. So at the time, like I was like, isn't it going to be closed? And he was like, well, no, there's like a parking lot. And he was like, I like to go out there and just like look at the stars.
Yeah.
So of course, being my 21-year old dumb self, I was like, oh yes, that sounds so great.
I don't think that's
So
dumb
we,
at all. I mean, if the date was going well at that point, but you said it was awkward, but if it
yes, it
was
was.
going, if it
Yeah, it
was,
was a little awkward. Like I was kind of ready for it to end, but at the same time, like being your first day, I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna see how this goes. Let's give it a shot.
yeah.
So, because I had been talking to this guy for like maybe 3 to 4 weeks at this point in time.
And this was the first
So
time that you met him? That's a long time to
yes,
talk.
exactly. That was kind of where I thought. And like being 32, like I was like, surely he's gonna, you know, ask me out sooner. So we go and he drove because we had met like at the Mexican restaurant. And so we're driving there and like we were conversing a little bit. He like was playing some music and I feel like the vibe kind of like got there again. And then we get to the mountains and at Cades Cove, it's pitch black, completely pitch black. And like driving up to it, like it's just like a windy road. So it was like a little just kind of like weird. I'm like, I'm in this car with this stranger that I've never met before. Like, oh my gosh. So we get there and he lays out like a blanket and we're like laying under the stars and just like talking and everything's going really, really good. And then he looks at me and he was like, you know what's something that like I just love to do more than anything? And I was like, what's that? And suddenly like jumps on top of me and it was like essentially like told me like I love the idea of just like cutting someone up in the woods and just like leaving them there. Yes.
Oh my God, this is so weird.
So immediately I look at him and I said, "Excuse me?" And he was like, "Does that not just sound like so fun to you?" And I was like,
Oh, I would have
"What?"
freaked out. I would have been like running for the hills.
Yes. And the icing on top of the cake is we're in the mountains where most of the time you don't have phone service. I had 0 bars. Like my phone was on SOS. Like I was completely terrified. So then,
It reminds me, for the listeners, it reminds me of the episode that I had probably a month ago, called I can't remember the exact title, but it has serial killer in the title. If you look it up, it's kind of like the same kind of vibe. Ooh, this is scary.
yeah. So he like went on with this for like maybe 2 to 3 minutes. And then finally was like, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. And I looked at him and I was like, regardless if I've been talking to you for like 3 weeks or not, like that's not really something you like joke about. Like, I don't find that very funny.
No, that's not funny at
So
all,
we
especially
had
when you're alone.
exactly. And he knew like I was his very first date, like, or he was my very first date ever, like with a guy. So we had a really long, awkward car ride back to Knoxville. And then I went home and I think that night I ended up calling one of my friends and I was like, I have something to tell you. So I told her and then like I gave her the rundown and everything. And she was like really freaked out about it and was like, you need to really be careful. And I was like, I know, I know, I know. And so long story short, I didn't talk to him for a couple days. And then he ended up like checking in with me and asked me to hang out again. And again, being young and naive, I was like, yeah, sure. And so this time he invited me to his house. So I went over there and we had been talking about the TV series like Shameless, and I told him like how I like really kind of like wanted to watch it and like just see what it was about because it was all hype at the time. And so he was like, I have them all like on, I think he said like DVD or something like that. And I was like, oh, okay, cool.
The old
So we're,
days.
yes, so we're gonna watch Shameless. And I get there and he was like, you can only stay here till like 9 o'clock. And I was like, okay, why? This man still lived at home with his mom and dad.
Is 32 years old.
Yes, at 32 years old.
And this was how many years ago?
So this would have been 9 years ago. So I don't know. He's probably 41 and still living at home with mom and dad.
And
But
rent back then wasn't even expensive. Now it's expensive,
exactly, no, like rent back then,
especially in
especially like here in,
Knoxville.
yes, it would have been so cheap, like maybe like $500-600 a month. And this man, he like was a like an IT professional. So like he made like really good money. He had his master's degree, like everything, like from the sounds of it, like in our conversations, like he had his life like put together. So I was really, really, captivated by that. And mind you, like I'm just like a poor college student waiting tables. And I'm like, oh yeah, like we've scored jackpot here. And yeah, no, it was such like a weird, weird vibe. Like I don't even know. I hope he's changed and I hope he doesn't pull that trick on anyone anymore.
So what did you say
Um,
to him?
so actually, okay, so after I went there, we did watch a few episodes of Shameless, and then he was like, yeah, you can go ahead and take these, like take this series and like borrow it. And I was like, okay, sounds good. And I ended up taking the series, and I think maybe like I talked to him like a day or two after that, and then I blocked him. And I
Yeah.
still have the same, like, actually, no, it's probably thrown away because who uses DVDs anymore? But
Yeah.
yeah, that was my very first dating experience.
Well,
And then that leads into our next one, which was like the first guy that I kind of ever fell for. And we will call him Jason.
it's my dad's name. Okay.
Okay. So how about Jay? Does that sound better?
Sure.
Okay. We'll go by Jay. So I meet Jay on the good old grinder again, and we get to
Did
talking.
you have any other dating apps at this point, or was it just Grinder?
Just grinder. I don't know if like Tinder was around or what was really around at that time. Maybe Bumble, I don't know.
Yeah.
But um we met and like hit it off so well at first. And I was spending like so much time with him. At the time I was taking classes like downtown too, so like he lived downtown. And this semester I was living at home. So instead of like commuting like 30 minutes to work every day, it was just so much easier. He lived like in a student like kind of apartment complex. So I just stayed with him all the time. Hit it off with his roommates, everything. And the only time we really weren't together was when like we were in class, he was at work and or I was at work. Um, and everything was just like going so good. And I like was thinking in my head, I was like, wow, I really, really like this guy. And it was very much so like a situationship, but at the same time, like I looked at it as kind of like a relationship. And so like I always kind of like asked him like where we stood, and he was like, I mean, like I'm only talking to you. And I was like, okay, like so pretty much like we're like exclusively like with each other.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, yeah. And I was like, okay, perfect. So we kept hanging out, like everything was super good. He did have like a traumatic like experience with his like previous boyfriend. So like I always kind of knew like he would talk to me about it, which I liked because I was like, okay, you're being open and transparent with me. Like I like that. Like, you don't have to like keep things like this from me. Like if something's bothering you, like discuss it with me.
Yeah.
And then I got to really know like his roommates and stuff because he lived in like an apartment where essentially like each person like rents a room. So like, but they all like hung out. They were all like randomly put together, but they all kind of became close. And so like I started meeting them. One of which his roommates, like I still like talk to this day, like if I see her out around town or anything. And so like everything was going so good. Um, and then I meet his mom and his younger brother and everything.
And
And I was like,
how long into the, I guess, relationship until this point?
um, I would say probably like 2 to 3 months
Okay.
of like seeing each other. So like nothing like too like soon or anything like that. And at this point, like I was like out to like my parents and like, well, my mom and stepdad and brothers and sisters and like all my friends like in the Knoxville area and most of my friends back home in Chicago too. So I was like out to everybody. So like it wasn't like a secret. I would, literally just tell my mom like, "Hey, I'm staying at Jay's house tonight," and she'd just be like, "Okay, be safe, like have fun," and everything like that. And so everything was going really, really good. Well, then Jay started having like issues with his car. And I was like, "Oh, well, like I'm here all the time, so like I'll just bring you to work or like wherever you need to go." And he was like, "Okay, perfect." So I did these things, and then suddenly like I started like kind of like realizing a little bit of like a weird pattern where like I would tell him like, "Yeah, like I'll bring you to work," and then like when you're done at work, just like let me know. Like I would plan like my evening around like picking him up from work.
Okay.
And slowly but surely, like it was like less and less that like I had to pick him up from work. And I would like I'd be like, like, "Hey, like what do you like what time are you getting off?" And he'd be like, "Oh, like I don't need a ride home. Like someone's gonna take me home." And I'd be like, "Okay." And at this time I was 22. So like being like the second guy that like I talked to, I kind of felt like looking back now, I kind of have that like ick where I was like very much so like, "What are you doing tonight? Like who are you with?" Or like anything like that. Almost kind of like obsessive. And
Yeah.
so I was like, I would always be like, "What are you doing tonight?" He'd be like, "Oh, I'm just going home." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Like, did you want to hang out tonight?" He'd be like, "I'm really tired." And I would typically just be like, "Oh, okay. Like, well, I'll see you soon." And then it started getting to where like he did need me to pick him up and different things like that. So I started noticing this
So his
pattern.
car was still in the shop, I'm assuming,
Yes,
for a
in the
long
shop.
time.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Because he had wrecked it, and come to find out later, like I should have seen this as a red flag. Um, he had been like drinking and driving, wrecked it, but I'm not seeing any red flags. So, and then also one of my friends like at Texas Roadhouse had told me that he had seen him on Grinder. And I was like, "No, you didn't." And he was like, "Yeah, I did." And I was like, "No, you didn't." And he was like, "Yes, I did. Like we literally exchanged pictures the other night." And I was like,
Oh,
"No, someone's
sad.
catfishing him." Yes.
Oh.
So I'm like, "Okay." So one night I had gotten off work and I was supposed to pick him up from work, but they were like at his work, they were like super busy. So he was like, "Hey, if you want, just go like chill at my apartment for a little bit. My roommates are there." And I was like, "Okay, sounds good." So I got to his apartment, knocked on the door, his roommate opened the door, like I went in and I just went into his room and was like doing some homework and studying and stuff. And I had like left his door kind of like propped open, and one of his roommates, his girlfriend, who like I still chat with to this day, she literally says to me, she was like, "Hey, I have a question." And I was like, "Yeah, what's up?" And she was like, "Are you and Jay like together?" And I was like, I mean, we've not really had like a confirmation on like putting a title on things, but like, I mean, yeah, like I'm not seeing anyone else. He's not seeing anyone else." And she was like, "Okay, interesting." And I said, "Why do you ask?" And she was like, well, like anytime you're not here, she's like, there's like another guy here."
Oh. Oh.
And I said, "Another guy?" And she's like, "Maybe not guy, maybe like other guys." And I was like, "Oh, like probably just like friends, right?" And she was like, I mean, yeah, if they stay the night, like whatever you want to call that. And I was like, oh, okay.
She's brave for doing this because that could have really, I mean, I don't know what the rest of the story is going to be, but it could really have made that living situation a hell on earth.
Yes. Well, the good thing is like she didn't like fully live there full time. Like it was
Okay.
just her boyfriend, but she like stayed there. But like to this day, like I have such mad respect for this woman because she was just like she essentially told her boyfriend, she was like, it's not right. And he was like, I don't think you should intervene. And she was like, no, that's not right. Because she like knew my whole like backstory. Like Jay was the first person that like I ever fell for and like all of this stuff. Like I like literally going into this whole relationship, I was like, like I'm gonna be with this guy for a long time. And after meeting someone's parents and everything, I mean that's kind of like serious. And like you're meeting their friends and all of this stuff.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, I go pick him up from work that night, and I was just like, "Hey, like I have a question," and he was like, "Yeah," and I said, "Are you like seeing anyone else?" And he was like, "I mean, like I've hung out with like some other guys," and I was like, "Okay, I guess I should have clarified that like sooner because like I'm not." And he was like, "Oh, you're not?" And I was like, "No," and he was like,
Didn't you already tell him this though?
"Yeah, like I guess essentially like I told him like I didn't I don't know how literally he took me when I was like, yeah, like I'm not seeing anyone or anything like that. Like, I guess he maybe thought for some reason I was kind of still like out browsing per se, but he was browsing on like a whole different level, I guess you could say, than I was.
Yeah.
And I wasn't like, Knoxville gay community is small. Like, I wasn't involved in the gay community. And I mean, unbeknownst to me, this person was very involved in the gay community and very well known in the gay community. So long story short, like I asked him about it and we kind of like just like made amends on it. And then like I told him, I was like, like what, like do you eventually like plan on putting a title on this? And he kind of just gave me, the little rundown of like, well, like let's just wait and see where it goes. So me being
Oh,
me,
oh my God, like my body locks up when
yes,
I hear that. I hate that.
yes, let's see where it goes and everything like that. And me being me, like first guy I'm ever falling for, I was just kind of like, okay, sounds good. Like we'll just wait and see where it goes.
Well, let's just keep you as an option, and when I feel like it, I'll
Yes,
prioritize you. But if something else comes up or somebody else I want to be with, oh, well, then go tell me.
exactly. Like when I'm
That's what
bored
that
and
means.
lonely at night and can't find anyone to cuddle with, like I'll call you. Like,
Right.
and so me being me, I was just kind of like, okay. So we keep hanging out like a little while longer, a little while longer. And then one night, he was like, hey, I'm gonna have a party tonight. And I was like, okay, sounds good. We take my car, go and get the alcohol, go and get like everything for this party. I end up paying for like half of this stuff, being my stupid self. And all these people come over. And it was a lot of people that I was like, oh, I've seen him on Grinder before. Like, oh, I've seen him. Oh, I've seen him. And so this party's going on. And I'm like sitting out on the balcony, like talking with some people. And there was actually like a guy there that I was kind of like, oh, like I always thought he was cute. And like now he's like right in front of me. And so like I like kind of was being petty and I was like, I'm gonna strike up conversation with him. So we started like talking and stuff. And like it was just very like genuine conversation, like not even being flirtatious or anything like that. It was very like, you know, PG rated conversation. Like I thought everyone there knew that like Jay and I had been like seeing each other and stuff like that because like I was there. Like it was almost like I was like hosting the party with him. So like I
Yeah.
was there before everyone arrived. And around like midnight rolls around and the party was still going and suddenly like I can't find Jay. And I
Oh,
was like,
well, I can only imagine.
where is he? And everybody's like, oh, we don't know. And like where he lived was kind of by this, we call them the bluffs, and it's like this big like wooded area. You walk up these trails. And I was thinking in my head at first, I was like, oh, he just like probably walked up there. It's like really pretty. You can like oversee like the Tennessee River and like downtown Knoxville and everything like that. So I was like, oh, maybe they just like walked up there. And everyone was like, yeah, maybe, like, we don't know. And because we used to walk up there all the time. So the party keeps going on. And then I'm like sitting in the living room. And okay, so like in this apartment, the living room, there's like the living room and then there's like his bedroom door. Well, in these apartments, like each bedroom has its own bathroom. So I'm sitting on the couch, which is up against like the wall that meets with the bathroom. And I hear like the water turn on in there. And I was like, who's taking a shower at like 1 o'clock in the morning at a party? Like, is someone like extremely drunk? Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So I, being my nosy self, I was like, huh, I really need to pee. So I get up from the couch and I go to open the bathroom door and it won't open. And I was like, okay. And then I hear him in there and he was like, yeah. And then I hear like a bunch of like laughing. And I
Okay.
was like, what is going on? Long story short, he was like in the shower. I don't to this day know really what happened in the shower, but there were four other men in the shower with him.
Oh, I love it. I live for it.
And
Literally. But it's like it's totally this for the listeners, it's totally a normal thing that happens in the gay community.
I
Like
mean,
let's just, cheat on everybody and have 10 boyfriends, Why
all at
not?
the same time. Yeah. Like, I mean, monogamy who?
Right?
So long story short, at first, like I was super, super angry and I was just like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe this. And this other guy that like I had like seen before on Grinder, um, I went to go look for him. Come to find out, he was one of the ones that was in there. And so like at this point, I'm like, okay, I like don't even know like who to talk to about this. Like, there's nobody here like that I'm like really like on that level with. So like I don't even know what to do. So I'm just kind of like sitting in the living room and I had been drinking, so I was like, okay, I can't drive home. Like, I don't know what to do. And so I was like, you know what? Here's what I'm gonna do. I ended up like walking to the bluffs, like just by myself that night, and just like sitting out there and just kind of, I guess you could say, like reflecting on what had just happened. And I sat there for a while and I had not like drank a ton that night, but enough to where I was just like, probably shouldn't drive. Until like I felt to a point where I was like, you know what, I can go home. But I was also terrified of going home because at this point in time it was like 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. Like my parents would hear me like unarm the house because our house had an alarm on it and stuff, and like they would hear me come in and or the dogs would like bark or something. I was like, I can't go home. So I ended up going to a good old Waffle House and having breakfast. And then the funny part was is Jay had to be at work the next morning at like 9 o'clock. And another red flag I should have seen before. He was on like a final like written with work about like being late and stuff like that, to where like he could have been fired. And his parents at the time kept telling him like, you're having to pay for this like wreck you got in, like the attorney and everything. Like you have got to be like on your game about like getting this stuff taken care of. Like we're not bailing you out. We're not doing it.
Yeah.
So I was his ride to work in the morning. Well, at like 7:30, 8 o'clock, I ended up going home and I laid down and went to bed. And at like 8:15, my phone lights up and it's him calling me. And I was like, hello. And he was like, where are you? And I said, I'm at home. Where are you? And he was like, uh, I just got up. Like, I need to get to work. I was wondering where you were at. Like, because I need to get to work. And I said, oh. And I literally told him, I was like, well, maybe you should ask one of those three guys that was in the shower with you last night,
I love it.
if
Yeah.
they can take you. And he was like, nobody's here. What do you mean? What are you talking about? Like acting completely blindsided to like what had happened. And I literally was like, I don't ever want to speak to you again. He was like, my bag is in your car. And I was like, okay, I'll leave it at your front door. And he was like, well, can you please bring me to work? And I was like, no. And long story short, jokes on him. He ended up like losing his job.
Love it.
and all of this stuff. And I was just like, wow, karma sucks. And so fast forward, we like ended things obviously. And then fast forward literally like 4 years. One of my like best friends started working at this restaurant and he worked there. And she like really hit things off with him because I will say like he had an extremely likable personality, like was always a light in the room, like very much so like an upbeat like person. And so she started working with him and this friend and I, her and I lived together. So I was at home one night just sitting on the couch watching a movie and she had texted me and she was like, "Hey, some of my work friends are going to come over." And I was like, "Okay, sounds good." And I'm sitting on the couch and in she walks and in he walks.
Oh,
And I was like, "Oh, hey." And like mind you too, like obviously when you see someone like from your past, you're always like, I want to like look my best, everything like that. I'm literally in these like athletic shorts with this like oversized like baggy t-shirt just chilling on my couch like just lounging around and he walks with her and I was like, "Oh, hey." And my roommate looks at me and she says, "You guys know each other?" And I was like, "Uh, yeah." And then I told her, I said, "Do you remember that person that I talked to you about, like the first person I ever fell for?" And she was like, "Shut up." And she literally looks at him and she was like, "You're a piece of shit." And he was like, I know. Like, I've grown so much since then." Like, and I mean, he like apologized for everything. And like, by this point in time, like, I didn't even care anymore. Like, I mean, he was gone to me. But,
yeah.
um, I don't know. It was just kind of funny. Like, things literally came like full circle. And he ended up like finally confessing to me, like, what exactly happened. And he was just like, I was just in such a bad state at that point in time. And I'm so sorry for like leading you on and like I hope I didn't like traumatize you from like dating other men and all that stuff. And I was just like, I mean, it was a wild first experience, but I mean, it is what it is and like you live and learn from it. But yeah, and I mean if we see each other like in public now, like we'll like wave to each other or anything like that, but we don't talk at all anymore. And honestly, like my friend that was like really close with him then too, she doesn't really talk to him anymore because after like they hung out, she literally told me, she was like, that really changes my perception on him. Like, I really like don't like, I guess she just like sided with me on it. She was like, I really don't like that he did that to you. So
Yeah.
yeah. So that was like my first date and then like the first guy that I ever fell for. So it was kind of a wild ride.
Well, isn't that awesome?
Yeah,
Love how they connect in a way.
exactly.
Um, yeah. Well, this is a great story. I mean, if it tells me anything, the gays in Knoxville are a little crazy, and I most certainly had some crazy experiences there too.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, Noah will be the co-host for this month. He'll be bringing some guests in the coming weeks. And for the listeners, as always, make sure you subscribe and save. Also, share it with like a friend or family member or something. That's how we grow it. If you want to share it on your social media, that's even better. You can follow us on um, Instagram and Facebook. It's Romance Unraveled. Until next time.